Are you struggling to find shippers and land customers as a freight broker? Don't worry, you're not alone. And in today's video, I'm going to break down exactly how to find potential shippers, prospect them effectively, and turn them into paying customers. All right, so let's dive in. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Tim. I've been in the freight industry for longer than I care to think about. And on this channel, we help brokers and agents like you build strong, profitable businesses. Okay. So step one is finding potential shippers, right? Where do you find shippers? The first thing is Google and directories. Okay. Search for manufacturers, distributors, and suppliers using terms like food distributors near me, auto parts manufacturers USA, retail suppliers in a particular city. Maybe it's Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, wherever. Okay. You can also look at industry specific websites, like ThomasNet. Okay, which is really great for finding manufacturers. You can use business directories like Manta, okay, or Import Genius, right? With import export, it's an import export database. Okay, so if there's anything coming into or out of the country, at some point in time it's on a truck, right? So don't forget to check out those import-export databases. I don't want this next one to get confused, okay? Freight load boards with shipper contacts, okay? So, your DAT, your truck stop, things like that, they have directories in there. I don't really recommend this, and I think that to some extent, and I've seen some of the posts on social media, that especially for you new people coming into the industry, you think that this is where you get your loads, right? It is not. But you can also find shippers that are posting their own loads, right? But I wouldn't spend a lot of time on that, because you're going to search lane after lane after lane after lane across however many days, right, in your search to find those, scrolling through it, because the vast majority is going to be brokers, right? Next thing would be networking and associations, right? You can join the TIA. If you're not sure, if you're not familiar with the TIA, it's the Transportation Intermediaries Association. Join your local chamber of commerce, okay? And then one thing I'm going to add to that is networking events, right? There's facilitated and unfacilitated networking events. See if maybe they might be the right fit for you. I actually have a friend of mine that coordinates these networking events, and essentially they're like warm leads, right? So if there's something like that in your area, definitely check that out. Attend industry trade shows, right? Food, automotive, etc. Okay. And another quick tip, look for companies with high shipping volume and frequent freight needs, right? These are primarily your best targets. All right. Step two is prospecting and research, right? And so you're like, how do I research prospects, right? Well, find the shipping manager or logistics coordinator on LinkedIn. Okay. I speak to a lot of people and they don't have a LinkedIn profile. It kind of shocks me, but I guess maybe it shouldn't. But yeah, definitely get a LinkedIn profile, make it professional. You can find plenty of leads through LinkedIn as well. And, don't just go for the throat, start looking up shipping managers and messaging them incessantly, right? Like, you're going to want to provide value. So maybe it's a recent article, or something that's industry related to them. So if they're a steel supplier or manufacturer, right, maybe there's something there that you could share with them, hey, I came across this, or something like that, that rapport, right? But it always helps to have that person's name when you do make your call. Pardon me for one moment. There's also things like Salesforce, Hunter.io, Apollo.io to help you find business emails, right? So I always kind of look at that as sort of a last resort when I'm trying to reach out to a prospect, because I would much rather have them on the phone versus sending them a cold email. Not all cold emails even make it through. Not to mention that it better be a pretty good cold email, okay? Because you're not speaking to the person, through the phone or in person to handle any objections that they might have. I can't tell you the number of times that, well, we're kind of all set, with what we've got going on, but the more you know about their business and things, all of our stuff's customer routed, or, something like that. But maybe they've got, numerous locations. So how do they handle their intercompany freight, right? What about their inbound loads, right? Is that being handled by their suppliers as well? So these are all things that you can't do in a cold email, right? And if you want to know more about handling objections, we just did a video the other day. Go check that out. Seemed to have been very helpful for a lot of people, that kind of get shut down on that phone call because they don't know how to handle objections. Research their shipping needs, right? Look at their website, news articles, things like that. Maybe they're building a new facility, right? With the talk of, new manufacturing facilities being built and more jobs being created now under the new administration. Look at that, right? Reach out to them now before they finish building and putting in all their equipment and everything. And it might not be freight that's ready for you today, tomorrow, next week, but down the road, it can be a very profitable customer for you. I've done it, right? I've had some shippers that took me 8 months to just a little over a year before we finally moved our first load. But when we did, it was extremely profitable, right? So don't ignore those shippers just because they're not shipping today. Okay. How do you contact them, right? Well, we kind of touched base on that a little bit. The fastest way to get in front of a shipper is to call, right? Don't be afraid of that phone. And when you're just starting out, or if you have no customers, your fault, their fault, nobody's fault, maybe your book of business flopped for whatever reason, you're gonna want to make a ton of phone calls, right? And when you do, you might say something like, hi, my name is, and I'm with, I notice your company ships this product. I'd love to see how I can help optimize your freight costs, streamline your logistics. Would you be available for a quick follow-up call, right? Something maybe like that, right? Everybody's cold calling technique is a little bit different. That's just an example. Again, not my favorite, but email outreach, right? Personalized, professional emails can work. Not really my go-to. I use those as a last resort personally. There's others that say that they have fairly decent success with that, but again, not my favorite. You might start the subject line with quick question about your freight needs, right? And then fill that in. Maybe mention the fact that you work with companies like theirs to help simplify their freight shipping. See if they're, you can schedule a call with them, later in the week or the following week or in the next day or two. Third thing is, as I also mentioned earlier, is LinkedIn and social media, right? You're going to want to connect, engage, and message those logistics managers, but provide value, right? Don't just message them and say, hey, can I get added to your freight distribution list? You know, odds are they're probably not going to answer you, and they may very well block you, right? Because you have to understand that a lot of these companies and these logistics managers, shipping managers, whatever their title is, a lot of times they're getting 100 to 300 calls a day from brokers, right? So to just call with a simplistic, a very basic, hey, can I get added to your freight list? You're not going to get anywhere, right? You really need to differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack. It's all about providing value, right? Step 3 is closing the deal, right? And handling objections. And I'll touch base on this, but just like I said, I just recently did another video on this. Go check that out. You might hear something like, we already have a broker. You would respond with something like, hey, that's great. I'd love to be a backup option in case of, in case you have any urgent shipments or have a truck fall off and your other broker can't get it, recovered, or they're unavailable, and it might only turn into one load a week or something, you know what I mean? But progressively, it could turn into more freight. They might also say something like, we only work with asset-based carriers. I completely understand. However, we have access to a large carrier network, which can provide flexibility and cost savings. Okay. And they might say, send me your info. And great, I'd be happy to. What's the best email? How do I reach you directly? Do you have an extension, right? If you call and the gatekeeper answered the phone. And if you still have another moment, I'd love to learn more about your lanes and any challenges that you're facing first, right? Before I send over that paperwork. Okay. Setting up your first load. Okay. Get their lane details and load requirements. Okay. Not every load is the same. All right. Ensure that they fill out a credit application, and in some cases also a broker shipper agreement, right? Provide a competitive yet profitable quote. Don't try to be the cheapest just to win business. That's a lose-lose situation. You also don't want to be the highest, right, coming in. Especially when you're first coming in, because they're going to go, this broker's out of his mind, right? So I find kind of finding that middle ground where it's still profitable for you, your carrier, and keeping your customer happy is best. Okay. Couple of final tips or thoughts is be consistent, right? As I mentioned earlier, sales is a numbers game. You are going to want to be making 100 calls a day. I don't care what anybody else tells you, right? Because I've seen some of these other, and I'm not dogging anybody, but I've seen some of these other channels and things, oh, well, you don't have to make 100 calls a day. That's the old way of doing things. You can do this, you can do that, you can work part-time and still be successful. No, because they're on YouTube, and then you see them later on LinkedIn, and they completely tell a completely different story, right? Just the interest of, trying to sell you something. Okay. Always follow up, right? A lot of deals take 5 to 7 touch points. Okay. So you're not always going to land that customer on that first call. Right. And even if you do, and you send them over the paper, the credit application to fill out, your broker shipper agreement, if you have one, they might just kind of ghost you after that. Right. And they're going to forget about you. Make sure you're following up constantly. Okay. I'm not saying bombard them, 20 more times every day, right? Until they get it back. Because at that point in time, they might tell you to kick rocks, right? But be consistent with your follow-ups. Okay. Build relationships, not just transactions. Okay. I can't stress that enough. Being successful as a freight broker or any part of this industry it relies heavily on building relationships, right? You can't just be a load board jockey. Okay. So that's what I have for you today. Let me know if you have any more questions on this, anything you'd like me to elaborate on. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe, for more free freight broker tips. So I hope to see everybody in the next video. As always, don't forget to check out my recommended tools and services in the description below. I hope everybody's having a great day. And as always, be kind to one another. Bye-bye now.